I'll never forget the sound of that knock. It was a slow, deliberate rhythm, as if whoever was on the other side knew beforehand that they were about to change my life. I dried my hands with a dish towel, expecting to find Tessa standing there with her usual forced smile and a contrived story about her job or some other man who had dumped her. But as soon as she opened the door, I knew this visit was different. She leaned against the doorframe as if she owned the place, one hand resting gently on her stomach. Her nails were freshly painted. A faint, mocking smile played on her lips. "Sarah," she said, drawing out my name like the beginning of a joke. "Tessa," I replied in a monotone but polite. "Would you like to come in?" "I won't be long," she said, and entered anyway as usual. She walked past me as if she had something important to do, as if I were just a fleeting addition to her day. She closed the door slowly. "So, what's up?" She turned around abruptly, as if she'd rehearsed it in front of the mirror. "I just wanted you to hear it from me first," she said, her voice laced with feigned sympathy. "I'm pregnant." I glanced at her hand on her stomach. I didn't say anything. She tilted her head, waiting for a reaction. "It's Julian," she added, watching me closely. Still, I didn't say anything, not even blink. Tessa's smile faded for a moment, but she quickly regained her composure. "I know this is hard for you, but he told me everything. He said you're boring, that he's tired of pretending, and that your relationship is falling apart." I waited again, maybe to cry, to scream, to break down. Instead, I looked her straight in the eyes and simply asked, "Are you done?" My question startled her. She cleared her throat and looked away for a moment. "Anyway, I'm sure the divorce papers will be here soon. Julian said he'll take care of it. I just thought, you'd want to start packing." I nodded slowly. "Thanks for the heads up." Tessa blinked. "Wait, that's it." "That's it." She stared at me, puzzled. "Aren't you going to yell at me? You're not even mad." I gave her a small, polite smile. "No." She frowned. "You're weird." I walked her to the door and opened it for her. "Good luck, Tessa. I hope it goes according to plan." She walked out, feeling utterly dejected that her big reveal hadn't gone as she'd imagined. And as she disappeared down the hall, she didn't see the slight curl of my lip as I closed the door behind her. Because what Tessa didn't know was simple. She hadn't destroyed me. She'd woken me up. And she had no idea what was going to happen next. People like to romanticize sisterhood. Matching pajamas, special jokes, borrowing each other's clothes. It was never realistic. Yes, Tessa and I were sisters by blood, but emotionally and spiritually, we were estranged rivals from the moment we started talking. I grew up the quiet, well-behaved, good-natured girl who got top grades and apologized even when I hadn't done anything wrong. My parents liked to call me mature for my age, but they never stopped to ask if I was okay. I was easy to forget because I didn't need anything. Tessa, on the other hand, demanded attention like it was oxygen, and she always got it. She'd throw a tantrum in the middle of a grocery store and be rewarded with candy. She'd cry over a low grade and be comforted with ice cream. When I quietly earned a good spelling mark in 4th grade, my parents barely reacted. But when Tessa came home with a trophy from a dance recital, she missed half the rehearsals because they threw her a pizza party. I remember sitting on the steps, watching them celebrate her humility as if it were magic. In that moment, I learned something hard but important. My family was above everyone else. But what hurt me most wasn't the favoritism, it was Tessa's jealousy. Every time I made a friend, she'd pounce, charm them, and somehow make me an outsider. When I joined the art club in middle school, she joined a week later, then made fun of me until I quit. She couldn't stand me having anything she didn't, no matter how small. Even in high school, it didn't stop. I got a role in the school play, and she befriended the lead actor and made sure I was replaced. If I was happy, she wanted to ruin it. That was her pleasure. So, I shouldn't have been surprised when she came after I got married. I met Julian in college, and for the first time, I felt like I possessed something sacred, something that belonged to me. But even during our engagement, Tessa would make comments. She'd say with a half smile, "He's too good for you." Or if you don't control him, someone else will. I'd laugh then, unaware that someone else was standing in the same room, preparing for revenge. And now, pregnant by my husband, she stood in my hallway as if she'd won. But Tessa didn't understand something crucial. She thought it was just another game, that she'd taken another toy from my quiet sister, who never resisted. She didn't realize I'd grown up. She didn't know I wasn't the girl who would stay silent when someone took what was mine. She'd spent her whole life trying to take things from me. But this time, I wouldn't let her keep it. They say wisdom comes too late, but sometimes you don't even need to look back. The flaws were always there, but you just ignored them. When Julian and I got married, I thought we were the envy of everyone. He was caring, fun, and ambitious. I felt safe with him. For a while, I truly believed I'd found someone who saw me. Not just the quiet girl, not Tessa's sister, but just Sarah. But marriage has a way of revealing a person, not through grand moments, but in the quiet details of everyday life. It started with the phone. He'd leave it around the house, on the kitchen table, in the bathroom sink, with no password, nothing to hide. Then one day he started locking it. I got an update, he mumbled when I asked. It locks automatically now. I didn't press him. I trusted him. But I do remember feeling a little uneasy. Then came the late nights. He wasn't the type to push himself too hard. In fact, we used to laugh at how quickly he'd leave work after 5. But suddenly he was always finishing something. It was always a final Zoom call. I'd wait for him at dinner. Sometimes I'd fall asleep on the couch waiting for him. He'd dismiss my anxieties with a tired smile and say, "You're overreacting. You know how it is on the promotion trail." I'd nod, pretending to understand. I didn't want to be the clingy, insecure wife. I convinced myself it was normal, that I was the problem, until that night when I found out. It was a Thursday. He'd said he was invited to a business dinner. I stayed home with a headache. Around 9:30 p.m., I heard his phone ring on the bathroom counter. He'd forgotten to take it with him. I wish I could say I hesitated, that I wrestled with my conscience, but I didn't. I picked it up, opened the notifications, and there was the message. A text from Tessa. A selfie. Her lips were parted, her shirt barely covering her. She'd written, "Thinking of you. Wish I was under that table instead of eating." I didn't cry. Not right away. I stared at the screen as if reading someone else's life story. That was the moment the marriage ended, even if the divorce papers hadn't been officially filed yet. And I knew all the signs were there. The phone, the distance, the lukewarm kisses, the business trips that made no sense. I wasn't crazy. I wasn't insecure. The two people I was supposed to trust more than anyone had betrayed me. But instead of confronting them right then and there, I did something else. I hung up. I smiled. And I started planning, because if they wanted to play dirty, they wouldn't know who they were dealing with. The day I stopped pretending wasn't the day I saw the letter. That was just the spark. The real moment. It came later when I saw them together. It was a rainy Saturday afternoon. Julian said he was going to a meeting with a client. I smiled, kissed his cheek, and prepared lunch for him. I even added a biscuit, just like I used to when we were married. He didn't notice that my hands weren't shaking anymore, that my smile was colder than before. He left in a hurry. I waited 5 minutes, grabbed my umbrella, and got into my car. I already knew where I was going. I'd followed him twice before. But this time I had my camera, not my phone, not screenshots, not real photos, irrefutable proof. He arrived at the hotel as if he'd done it 100 times. Without hesitation, as if it were a deeply ingrained habit, as if his infidelity had become a routine task. Picking up laundry. Stopping by the mistress's room, lying to the wife. I parked a block away and walked slowly, my hood pulled up. The rain helped. No one gives a second glance to someone with a camera in a storm. I took pictures of him coming in. I watched Tessa open the door for him in nothing but a robe, then coil around him like a smug little snake. Click, click, click. I didn't get angry. I didn't cry. I'm over it now. I went home, downloaded the pictures, saved them in multiple folders, backed them up, and emailed them to my inbox. I'm done crying. Now I'm working. The next day I called a lawyer. Not just any lawyer, but a divorce lawyer who specialized in adultery cases. She was smart, assertive, and when I showed her the photos, she said one word that made my heart race. Excellent. For the next few weeks, I kept my act together. I kissed Julian goodnight. I texted Tessa funny messages. I even invited her over for brunch and let her sit at my table, eat my food, and laugh at my stories. She thought she was winning, but I was building a case. I collected receipts, recorded the texts, and planted a recording device during one of their secret calls. Tessa whispered everything. She's so naive, Danny. I almost feel sorry for her. Julian laughed. She'll find out when the paperwork arrives. She might cry, but she'll get over it. I hit the stop button on the recorder and smiled. They weren't just cruel, they were stupid too. Meanwhile, I met with my financial advisor, transferred the funds, protected my assets, and quietly closed the joint accounts. Julian didn't notice a thing. He was lost in his own fantasy. Tessa was wallowing in self-importance. She thought I was still blind. She thought I was still weak. But I wasn't pretending anymore. They thought they were pulling the strings. But every smile I gave them, every message I replied to, was another string tightening my grip on them, because I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to end this my way. And when I did, neither of them would expect it. Tessa thought she had me cornered. Every time she visited, she walked into my house as if she owned it, as if I were just a bitter ex-lover waiting to be replaced. Worse still, she genuinely believed I was too fragile, too naive, too kind to resist. I let her think that. Ah, Sarah, I sighed dramatically. I know this is hard for you, but Julian and I didn't plan this. It just happened. Love is unpredictable, isn't it? I picked up my teacup and nodded slowly, my eyes fixed on the ground. Right. She seemed quite pleased when I said that, as if she were doing me a favor by letting me watch her show off in my kitchen. I played dumb. It was my turn now. I pretended I hadn't noticed Julian's suitcases disappearing, that I hadn't seen Tessa's lip gloss in his car, or her perfume clinging to his shirts. I even politely asked if she wanted to borrow my dress for her next work event. "Oh my God, Sarah, you're handling this so maturely," she said, surprised. I smiled. I just wanted everyone to be happy. Behind my smile, every move was calculated. I knew her vanity was her Achilles heel, so I fed it. "You're so much prettier than me," I whispered one day as we pretended to be close over a glass of wine. "No wonder he chose you." Tessa's face lit up as if she'd won a prize. She never questioned why I wasn't crying, why I wasn't begging Julian to stay, why I wasn't furious, because in her eyes, she'd already won. And that made her easy to manipulate. While she was obsessed with Julian, I was meeting with my lawyers, finalizing the review of our prenuptial agreement. It turned out that infidelity nullified my spousal support. It turned out that everything I'd worked for was legally protected. I quietly transferred the money, secured the assets, and rewrote my will. I even added a clause. If anything happened to me, Tessa would get nothing. This allowed me to sleep more soundly. As for Julian, it left him feeling like the king of a castle he didn't know was crumbling. One evening, I asked him gently, "Honey, would you like me to wash your work shirts?" He looked surprised. "Okay, sure." Then I delivered one to my lawyer's office. The dry cleaning card had traces of DNA on it. More evidence. This wasn't just revenge. It was chess. And they were playing checkers. I was no longer the quiet, neglectful sister or the doting wife. I was the woman who smiled while her enemies lay dormant in the trap she had set. And what a relief. They didn't realize I wasn't losing them. I was preparing a defeat from which they would never recover. Tessa strode into my hallway with the confident steps of a queen on her throne. She wore a tight red dress, one I'd worn once to our anniversary dinner. This time, she didn't knock. She rang the bell and waited with a broad smile, as if she'd come to finish her business. The last time she'd come, she'd brought betrayal. This time, I'd expected her to leave with my life. But I had something else in store for her. I opened the door with the same calm expression she'd mistaken for weakness. Behind me, a woman in a dark blue suit sat quietly at the kitchen table. Tessa didn't notice her at first. Finally, as she passed me, Tessa said, "Are the papers signed, or do I have to wait until he's finally moving in?" Before I could reply, the woman in the dark blue suit stood up. "Tessa Thomas?" she asked firmly. Tessa looked flustered. "Yes, you've been officially notified," the woman said, holding a thick envelope in her hands. "What? What's this?" Tessa blinked rapidly, taken aback for the first time. "This is a lawsuit for emotional distress, defamation, and trespassing," the woman said. "Filed on behalf of Ms. Malaya, it's effective immediately. You are prohibited from coming within 200 feet of her home, workplace, or social events. Your name is also mentioned in a civil restraining order." Tessa's jaw dropped, but her surprise didn't end there. "Just to clarify, there will be no divorce papers," I added. Tessa blinked. "What do you mean? You're his wife." I almost felt sorry for her. "Actually, Julian and I were never legally married," I said. "It was a symbolic ceremony. We didn't get a marriage license." Tessa frowned. "You're lying. You can check the county records. I already sent you a copy of the certificate, or rather, the lack thereof. Julian and I were together." "Sure. But married?" "No. And do you know what that means, Tessa? All that boasting, all those lies. You stole a man who wasn't mine to begin with." She recoiled. "This is unbelievable." "Yes, it is," I said. "And now you're facing a lawsuit that will keep you in court for months. Legal fees, damage to your reputation. Not to mention Julian's company, which I own a part of. Yes, legally. Which means that by cheating on him with the fiancé of one of the executive partners, he's broken a serious clause in the company's contract." Tessa looked like she was about to throw up. I tilted my head and smiled. "You played your cards too early." I watched. I waited. And now I'm reaping the rewards. I tried to speak, but I shut the door on her silence. Outside, I heard the click of her heels on the pavement as she stumbled back to her car, heavy with papers in her hands. Tessa came expecting to win. Instead, she walked away with a lawsuit, a restraining order, and the realization that she'd never been ahead. She was just a pawn in a game she never understood. And I was tired of pretending to be nice. They thought I'd break it. They thought I'd beg them, that I'd crumble under the weight of betrayal. But they forgot. I wasn't the girl they used to play with anymore. I wasn't the naive, approval-hungry Sarah anymore. I'd watched them build a fantasy world of lies. And now it was my turn to ignite the crisis. I called them both. A neutral place, a quiet, glass-walled meeting room in my lawyer's office. Julian arrived first, smug and freshly shaved, as if they'd just parted ways amicably. Tessa followed, a triumphant look on her face. But that look vanished the moment she saw the files on the table. Legal documents, evidence, screenshots, witness statements, audio recordings. "Why did you call this meeting?" Julian asked. "To show you exactly what it's like when the truth comes out," I said firmly, my hands folded on the table, "and how easily a castle built on lies can burn down. I passed a copy of my compiled file across the table. Let's start with you, Julian. His hands trembled as he flipped through the pages. Emails between him and Tessa, hotel records, a copy of the fidelity clause in his employment contract. Financial records showing transfers from our joint account to Tessa's luxury purchases. You weren't just a traitor, I said, my voice low but sharp. You were careless and stupid, and now your board knows. You'll receive your official termination letter within a week. Effective immediately. He swallowed hard. You won't. I already have. Then I turned to Tessa. You wished you were like me, Tessa. But the truth is, you never had your own identity. You always clung to what I had. My friends, my clothes, my self-confidence, and now my husband. She opened her mouth to speak, but I cut her off. I hoped the taste of this betrayal was worth it, because while you were busy stealing scraps, I was rebuilding everything you thought you had destroyed. I took out one last envelope. This is proof of my ownership of Julian's share of the business. It was transferred to me even before you arrived that day. I advised him to protect it from creditors. You'll find my name on every asset you thought you'd enjoy together. You manipulated us, she said bitterly. No, I said I watched and planned. That's not manipulation. That's self-preservation. Julian looked pale. Tessa looked angry. But I felt at peace. I stood up and looked at them one last time. You deserve each other. Enjoy the consequences. And with that I left. No shouting, no tears, just the echo of my footsteps on the tiled floor as I left them sitting in their wreckage. Outside, the air felt different, lighter. The mask I'd worn for so long, the mask of the loving partner, the forgiving sister, the blind fool, burned away the moment I stepped out that door. I didn't need a revenge that would destroy me too. I needed freedom, and now I had it. People always think that betrayal breaks you. That you crumble when someone tears through your trust like a knife slices through warm butter. But let me tell you something, they're wrong. Betrayal didn't break me. It awakened me. In the weeks after that final confrontation, I felt empty. Not sadness, not anger, just quiet. As if I'd finally silenced a noise I hadn't even realized had been screaming in the background for years. The chaos, the pretense, the trying to be enough for people who never really saw me. It all stopped. And when the noise stopped, I could finally hear myself again. Slowly, I began just breathing, just being. I walked without checking my phone. I ate my meals without a stomach ache from wondering if Julian really was working late. I sat in silence and learned to love him. No more hesitation. No more emotional battles to win. A love that should have been given freely. And then I got to work. I'd always had ideas, business plans scribbled in notebooks, and brand concepts stored in my mind. I used to share them with Julian, and he'd smile gently, then turn the conversation to himself. But now no one was ignoring me. I took a risk and started a small consulting firm. Just me, a laptop, and a few clients willing to take a chance. Within months, the firm grew. Its reputation spread. Recommendations turned into partnerships. Partnerships into contracts. Before I knew it, I wasn't just fighting for survival. I was thriving. My name, Sarah Saunders, was finally on the front of a valuable business card. But true wealth didn't come from money. It came from the people I chose. Friends I felt like soulmates with, colleagues who respected me, clients who valued my opinion, and long nights filled with laughter, wine, and honest conversations where I didn't have to pretend. There's something incredibly comforting about being seen, truly seen and loved. However, this is something Tessa never understood. She always craved attention, recognition, and the spotlight, but she never grasped the power of peace. Strangely enough, I heard she had a baby. Julian, he abandoned her. Turns out, cheaters don't make great parents either. Tessa tried to spin the story. She said I cheated on them. She said I set them up. But people aren't stupid, especially the ones I care about. They saw through her charade. Her victim act failed. And with Julian out of the picture and her reputation tarnished, Tessa is struggling to maintain her facade. Sometimes people ask me if I feel bad. Here's the truth, I don't. Because the version of me that would have felt guilty is gone. She died the day Tessa knocked on my door and told me I was receiving divorce papers for a marriage that never had any legal standing. That was Sarah, thirsting for love, thirsting for belonging, ready to sacrifice herself for peace. She was buried long ago. The Sarah who lives today enters rooms without knocking. She is kind but not weak. She is strong but not heartless. She trusts only those who deserve her trust. And most of all, she is free. I often think about that moment. Tessa standing there, smug, thinking she was in control. The image plays out in my mind like a scene from a movie. I remember her words perfectly. I'm pregnant with Julian's baby, and you should expect divorce papers soon. And I remember my face, that calm smile I gave her because she didn't know anything. She didn't know she'd fallen into a trap so intricately woven, so expertly executed, that by the time she realized what had happened, it was all over. That this is the part of the story she never knew. So here's my final word. I hope Tessa enjoys single motherhood. I truly do. I hope she learns from it, grows through it, and becomes a better person. As for me, I'm too busy enjoying my freedom, building an empire from the ashes they thought would bury me, and loving a life where I never have to beg anyone to stay. Because now I always choose myself.
अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं। ये जो दिन सहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं। तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा बेसर्द लगता है। दिल का हर एक कोना अब बहुत ही दूर भरता है। अंधेरी दीवारों में खुद को ढूंढता हूँ मैं। ये जो दिन सुहाने थे उन्हीं को सोचता हूँ मैं। तुम्हारे बिन ये मौसम भी बड़ा सर्द लगता है। दिल का हर एक कोना बहुत ही दर्द भरता है। मेरे साए भी मुझसे अब जुदा होने को कहते हैं। तुझे खोने की राहों में ये आंसू बहने लगते हैं। कहाँ जाऊं कहाँ ढूंढूं मेरा वो साजो सामा तो मेरी हर एक तमन्ना तू। मेरी रूह का मकां तू। लकीरों में नहीं लिखा जो तुमने ख्वाब देखा था। वफा की इस कहानी में फकत एक गम ही लिखा था। सितारों से भी पूछता है पता तेरा कहाँ होगा। मगर खामोश है दुनिया कहाँ मेरा जहाँ होगा। बस एक बार मुड़ के देख ले मेरी बेबसी की सूरत। मुझे है आज भी तेरी वफा की सख्त जरूरत। साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर। साए मेरे तन्हा सफर बस रह गया दर्द का असर। दर्द का असर।